The transport ship shook as it moved through space toward Nexus Prime. Inside the metal walls, Kang Tae-ho sat quietly in his seat. He looked out the small window at the huge space station getting bigger and bigger. The station was as large as a small moon with lights blinking all over its surface. Tae-ho was 23 years old and not very tall. He had short black hair and dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. His body was strong but not huge like some soldiers. He wore the blue uniform of Earth's Korean Peninsula Defense Corps. On his chest were 3 small medals that showed he was a good soldier, but nothing special by alien standards. Other beings sat around him in the transport. There was a creature, with purple skin and 4 arms reading something on a glowing screen. Another being looked like a giant lizard, with scales that changed colors. A third alien was so tall that his head almost touched the ceiling, even while sitting down. None of them looked at Tae-ho. To them, he was just another human. Humans were known across the galaxy as the species that was okay at everything but great at nothing. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the smartest. They were just average. The transport ship docked with a loud clang. A voice spoke over the speakers in the common galactic language. All new cadets report to Level 7, Section C for registration. Tae-ho stood up and grabbed his small bag. It contained everything he owned, some clothes, a few personal items, and a photo of his family back on Earth. His sister Soo-jin was in the photo, smiling and giving him a thumbs up. She had said to him before he left, "Show them what humans can do, brother." The hallways of Nexus Prime were enormous. The ceilings were 30 feet high to fit all the different alien species. Tae-ho walked behind a group of other new cadets. They were all talking loudly about their homeworlds and how strong their species were. "My people have won every war for the last 1,000 years," said a voice like grinding rocks. Tae-ho looked up to see a massive creature with gray skin that looked like stone. This had to be one of the Gorians he had read about. They were famous for being almost impossible to hurt. "Speed wins wars, not just strength," said another voice. A female alien with 6 arms and silver skin moved past them. She was so fast that she seemed to appear and disappear. "My people can strike 50 times before your people can swing once." A third alien laughed. This one was 8 feet tall with natural armor covering his body. Sharp claws stuck out from his hands. "The Kraliks have never lost a battle. We are born warriors. These training games will be easy." Tae-ho said nothing. He just listened and learned. They reached a large room where hundreds of cadets were gathering. At the front stood the biggest alien Tae-ho had ever seen. He was at least 10 feet tall with wings, scales, and eyes that glowed red. This was Commander Hyksos, a Draconian. The Draconians were the oldest warrior race in the galaxy. "Welcome to the Vanguard Combat Program," Commander Hyksos said. His voice was deep and scary. "This is the hardest military training in known space. Most of you will fail. Many of you will quit. Some of you will get hurt badly." The commander's glowing eyes looked across all the cadets. When they stopped on Tae-ho, the human felt like he was being studied by a predator. "You are here because your species think you are the best they have to offer," the commander continued. "We will find out if they were right or wrong. Training starts tomorrow at dawn. Get your room assignments and rest. You will need it." The cadets moved to different tables to get their assignments. Tae-ho waited in line behind the tall Kralix warrior. The alien turned around and looked down at him. "A human," the Kralix said. His name tag read Veltar. "I thought this was supposed to be elite training. Why do they let weak species join?" Other aliens nearby heard this and turned to look. Tae-ho could feel their eyes on him. Some looked curious. Others looked like they thought it was funny. A few looked annoyed. "Maybe they need someone to carry supplies," laughed the 6-armed female. Her name tag said Nixara, or clean equipment, added the stone-skinned Gorian called Broksan. Tae-ho did not get angry. He had heard this kind of talk before. Instead, he looked directly at Veltar and said quietly, "I guess we will find out tomorrow." After getting his room assignment, Tae-ho walked through more huge hallways. His room was small but clean. It had a bed, a desk, and a wall screen for communication. He put his bag on the desk and sat on the bed. The wall screen buzzed with a message from Earth. It was from his sister Soo Jin. Her face appeared on the screen, smiling. "Hi, brother. How is the fancy space station? Are the aliens nice to you?" she asked. Taeho smiled for the first time that day. "The station is huge. The aliens, well, they think humans are weak. They do not expect much from me." "Good," Sujin said with a grin. "Then you can surprise them. Remember what our grandfather used to say, the tree that bends in the storm does not break." After the call ended, Taeho sat quietly for a while. Through his small window, he could see stars and other ships moving around the station. Somewhere out there was Earth, where humans were still proving they belonged in the galaxy. He opened his personal tablet and started reading files about the other species in his training group. The Kraliks were known for their warrior culture and natural weapons. The Zeridians were hunters with incredible speed and reflexes. The Gorians were living tanks that could survive almost anything. The Mentharas could read minds and predict enemy moves. Each species had evolved to be the best at something. The Kraliks were the best fighters. The Zeridians were the best hunters. The Gorians were the best defenders. The Mentharas were the best tacticians. And humans? The file said humans were adaptable generalists with no particular strengths. In other words, they were average at everything. Taeho closed the tablet and lay back on his bed. Tomorrow would be the first day of testing. The aliens expected him to fail quickly and quietly. They thought humans were too weak for real military training. They were probably right about humans being weaker, slower, and less specialized than other species. But they might be wrong about what that meant. As he fell asleep, Taeho thought about his grandfather's words. Maybe being able to bend was not the same as being weak. Maybe surviving was not about being the strongest tree in the forest. Maybe it was about being the tree that was still standing after the storm passed. The next morning would bring the first tests. The aliens would show off their natural advantages. They would prove they were superior in strength, speed, and special abilities. And Taeho would begin to show them something they had never seen before, what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had never really understood what humans could do. The storm was coming. It was time to see who would bend and who would break. The alarm rang at 5 a.m. Taeho woke up quickly and got dressed. He had learned long ago to be ready fast. Other cadets in the hallways looked tired and confused. Some aliens needed more sleep than others, and the early wake-up time was hard for them. The training room was huge with white walls and a high ceiling. All 50 cadets stood in rows while Commander Hixtos walked back and forth in front of them. His red eyes seemed to burn as he looked at each cadet. "Today we test your basic abilities," the commander said. "Strength, speed, endurance, and weapon skills. The weak will be removed from this program before they waste more of our time." The first test was simple. Lift heavy weights. A machine measured how much each cadet could lift. Veltar went first. The big Kralix warrior grabbed the metal bar and lifted it easily. The machine showed his score 847 units. Other aliens cheered. Nixara was next. Even though she was smaller, her 6 arms worked together to lift 623 units. Broxan, the stone-skinned Gorian, lifted 934 units without even breathing hard. When Taeho's turn came, the room got quiet. He grabbed the bar and pulled up with all his strength. The machine showed 312 units. Some aliens laughed quietly. Others shook their heads. "Pathetic," Veltar whispered to Nixara. "My little sister could lift more than that." The speed test came next. Cadets had to run through a course with obstacles. Again, the aliens showed their natural gifts. Nixara moved so fast she was just a silver blur. She finished the course in 23 seconds. Other speed-based species finished in under 30 seconds. Taeho ran the course steadily. He was not fast, but he did not slow down either. His time was 54 seconds. Not terrible, but not good compared to the others. The endurance test was different. Cadets had to keep running on machines for as long as possible. Many of the strong aliens got tired quickly. Their bodies were built for short bursts of power, not long activities. But something interesting happened during this test. While aliens started dropping out after 20 or 30 minutes, Taeho kept going. His breathing stayed steady. His pace never changed. After an hour, only 12 cadets were still running. After 2 hours, only 5 were left. Taeho was one of them. "How is the human still running?" asked Yisha, a blue-skinned Menthari who had given up after 45 minutes. She could read thoughts, but she could not understand what kept Taeho moving. Commander Hixtos watched with interest as the human kept running with the same steady pace. The other 4 cadets were breathing hard and sweating. Taeho looked like he could run for several more hours. Finally, after 2.5 hours, the test ended. Taeho had outlasted aliens who were supposed to be much stronger than him. The weapons test was last. Each cadet got to choose their preferred weapon and show their skills. Veltar picked a huge sword and swung it like it weighed nothing. He cut through practice targets with perfect form. Nixara chose 6 small knives and threw them all at once, hitting 6 different targets perfectly. Taeho picked up a simple rifle. It was not fancy or special. He aimed carefully and fired. His shots were good but not amazing. He scored in the middle range of all the cadets. At the end of the day, the scores were posted on a big screen. Overall rankings: Veltar, Kralix, 94 points Nixara, Zeridian, 91 points Broxan, Gorian, 89 points Yisha, Menthari, 85 points. Kang Taeho, Human, 67 points. Taeho looked at his ranking without emotion. He was not surprised. The aliens were physically better than him in almost every way. But he had noticed something during the tests that others missed. The second week brought combat simulations. These were computer-generated battles that felt completely real. The first simulation was simple: defend a small base from enemy attack. Veltar's team went first. They charged at the enemies with great strength and courage. Veltar roared as he fought, his claws cutting through enemy soldiers. His team won quickly and easily. When Taeho's team entered the same simulation, they faced the same enemies in the same place, but Taeho did something different. Instead of attacking right away, he spent 10 minutes watching. "What are you doing?" asked Kim Do-hyun, a nervous alien on his team. "We should attack now." "Wait," Taeho said quietly. "Look at their patrol pattern. See how they move?" Taeho counted the enemy movements. He watched where they went and when. They stopped to rest. He noticed that every 12 minutes, 2 guards left their post to check on something else. For exactly 90 seconds, one side of the base was undefended. "Now," Taeho whispered, when the time was right. His team moved, quickly and quietly, to the undefended side. They got inside the base without fighting anyone. Once inside, they captured the enemy commander. With their leader gone, the other enemies gave up without a fight. The simulation ended. Taeho's team had won without anyone getting hurt, and in half the time it took Veltar's team. In the observation room, Commander Hixtos watched the replay with other instructors. "How did the humans' team achieve superior results with inferior physical capabilities?" asked one instructor. "He watched first," said another instructor, a wise old alien with tentacles for arms. "Most species attack with their strengths. The human found the enemy's weakness." More simulations followed over the next few days. Each time, the physically stronger aliens used their natural advantages to win through force. Each time, Taeho found different ways to succeed. In a jungle simulation, while others fought through thick plants and dangerous animals, Taeho found old paths that were easier to use. In a space battle simulation, while others tried to outgun enemy ships, Taeho used asteroids and space debris to hide his attacks. The other cadets started to notice. During mealtimes, some of them would sit near Taeho and listen to him talk about the simulations. "How did you know about the path in the jungle?" asked Park Min-soo, a young alien who looked like a walking tree. "I studied the terrain map for 20 minutes before we started," Taeho explained. "Old paths show up as slight color differences if you know what to look for." "But that is so much work," said another cadet. "Why not just cut through the jungle with weapons?" "Cutting through takes energy and makes noise," Taeho replied. "Using the path saved energy and kept us hidden. We reached the target faster and safer. Even Veltar began to listen, though he pretended not to care. The proud Kralix warrior was still stronger and faster than the human, but he had started to notice that Teho's teams always seemed to have an easier time in the simulations. After 2 weeks of training, new rankings were posted. Overall rankings: Veltar, Kralix, 94 points Nixara, Zeridian, 92 points Broxan, Gorian, 90 points Yisha, Menthari, 87 points. Kang Teho, human, 78 points. Teho had moved up from 15th place to 12th place. His physical scores were still low, but his tactical and strategy scores were getting higher and higher. That night, Teho sent another message to his sister on Earth. "How is training going?" Sujin asked, her face appearing on the wall screen. "Better than expected," Teho said with a small smile. "They are starting to see that there are different ways to be strong." "What do you mean?" "A big hammer can break through a wall," Teho explained. "But sometimes it is better to find the door." Sujin laughed. "Grandfather would be proud. You are learning to bend without breaking." After the call ended, Teho sat at his desk and studied recordings of the day's simulations. While other cadets were resting or celebrating their victories, he was learning. Every mistake, every success, every pattern. He remembered it all. The aliens were physically superior to him. That would never change. But they were starting to learn that physical superiority was not the only path to victory, and Teho was just getting started. The 4th week of training brought something new and scary: mental warfare. Commander Hixtos stood before the cadets with a dark expression on his scaled face. "Physical strength means nothing if your mind breaks," he announced. "This week we test your psychological endurance. Many warriors can fight with their bodies. Few can fight when their minds are under attack." The first test was sensory deprivation. Each cadet was put into a small, dark room with no sound, no light, and no way to tell what time it was. They had to stay calm and focused for as long as possible. Broxan, the huge Gorian, came out after only 2 hours. He was shaking and breathing hard. "The silence," he whispered. It felt like the walls were closing in. Nixara lasted 4 hours before she started hitting the walls. Her species needed constant movement and activity. Being still in the dark drove her crazy. Even Veltar, the proud Kralix warrior, came out after 6 hours. He looked embarrassed and angry. "This is not real combat," he complained. "In real battle, I would destroy any enemy." But Teho stayed in his dark room for 12 hours. When they finally opened the door, he was sitting calmly in the center of the room. His breathing was steady, and his eyes were clear. "How?" asked Dr. Kim Subin, a human scientist who had come to study the training program. She was the only other human on the station besides Teho. "I used the time to think," Teho explained simply. "I reviewed every simulation we have done. I planned new strategies. The darkness was not a prison. It was a quiet place to learn." The next test was even harder: moral dilemmas. Each cadet faced computer simulations where they had to make impossible choices. Save 10 soldiers or save 100 civilians? Follow orders that seemed wrong or disobey and risk punishment? Many aliens became confused and upset. Their species had clear rules about right and wrong. When faced with situations where every choice led to pain, they could not decide. Yisha, the mind-reading Menthari, had a complete breakdown. "I can feel the simulated pain of everyone I do not save," she cried. "How can I choose who lives and who dies?" But Teho approached each scenario calmly. He did not try to find perfect solutions because he understood there were none. Instead, he chose the option that saved the most lives or caused the least harm. He accepted that leadership sometimes meant making terrible choices. "The human shows no emotion," observed one instructor. "Does he not care about the suffering?" Dr. Kim Subin watched Teho through the monitors. "He cares deeply," she explained. "But humans learned long ago that caring and thinking can happen at the same time. Emotion guides his choices, but logic helps him act." The third test pushed cadets to their breaking point: sleep deprivation combined with constant combat. For 4 days and nights they had to fight enemies in simulation after simulation with no rest. By the second day, most aliens were making serious mistakes. Broxon fell asleep standing up and got killed in a simulation. Nixara became so tired that her speed meant nothing. She kept running into walls. Veltar fought harder as he got more tired, but his anger made him careless. He charged into obvious traps because he was too exhausted to think clearly. But something strange happened with Teho. The more tired he became, the more focused he seemed. While others made bigger and bigger mistakes, he made fewer and fewer. His movements became more efficient. His decisions became clearer. "This should not be possible," said Commander Hixtos as he watched the monitors. "All species lose effectiveness when deprived of sleep. Why does the human improve?" Dr. Kim Subin had been taking notes for days. "Commander, may I share something I have discovered about humans?" The big draconian nodded. "Most species evolved in stable environments," she explained. "If you are the strongest, fastest, or smartest in your area, you survive. But humans come from a planet that tried to kill them every day. Ice ages, storms, floods, droughts, predators, diseases. Everything on Earth wanted humans dead." She pointed to Teho on the monitor. He was leading his exhausted team through another simulation, somehow making it look easy. Humans did not survive by being the best at any one thing, she continued. They survived by never giving up. When things got bad, they got tougher. When things got worse, they adapted. The harder life became, the harder they fought back. The fourth day brought the worst test yet: psychological torture. Cadets were captured in a simulation and questioned by enemies. The enemies tried to break their minds to get information about their teams. One by one, the alien cadets either broke quickly or shut down completely. Broxon told the enemies everything after 30 minutes. Nixara went silent and refused to speak at all. Veltar became so angry that he tried to fight his captors and had to be sedated. When Tai-Ho was captured, something unexpected happened. The simulated enemies tried to break him with threats, pain, and psychological pressure. But instead of breaking or shutting down, Teho began to study his captors. He watched how they reacted to different answers. He noticed what made them angry and what made them confident. Slowly, carefully, he began to feed them false information that sounded true. "My team will attack from the north at dawn," he told them, sounding defeated and scared. The enemies believed him and moved their forces north. But Teho's team was actually attacking from the south at sunset. The false information led the enemies into a trap. When the simulation ended, Commander Hixtos stared at the results in disbelief. The human turned his capture into a victory. He used torture as a weapon against his torturers. Dr. Kim Subin smiled. Humans learned that every bad situation can become an opportunity if you are creative enough. By the end of the fourth week, something had changed in the training program. The alien cadets who used to laugh at Tai-Ho now watched him carefully. They began to ask him questions about his methods. "How do you stay calm when everything goes wrong?" asked Park Min-soo during dinner. "I expect things to go wrong," Teho replied. "When they do, I am ready. When they do not, I am happy." "But how do you think so clearly when you are tired and scared?" asked another cadet. "Fear and tiredness are just information," Teho explained. "They tell me about my situation. But they do not control my choices. I control my choices." Even Veltar came to sit at Teho's table one evening. The proud Kralix warrior looked embarrassed but curious. "Your methods are unusual," Veltar admitted. "In my culture, we believe strength conquers all. But you win without being strong." "I am not weak," Teho said quietly. "I am just strong in a different way." The new rankings were posted at the end of the week. Overall rankings: Kang Teho, human, 89 points; Veltar, Kralix, 88 points; Yisha, Menthari, 85 points; Nixara, Zeridian, 84 points. For the first time in the program's history, a human was ranked first. The quiet Marine who had arrived as an afterthought was now the top cadet. Commander Hixtos called Teho to his office that evening. The huge draconian looked at the human with new respect. I owe you an apology, the commander said. I thought humans were too weak for this program. I was wrong about what weakness means. You were not wrong about humans being physically weaker, Tejo replied. But strength has many forms. What form of strength do you possess? The commander asked. Tejo thought for a moment. The strength to keep going when everything says to stop. The strength to find hope in hopeless situations. The strength to bend without breaking. That night, Tejo sent another message to his sister on Earth. The aliens are starting to understand humans better, he told Sujin. They thought we were weak because we are not the biggest or fastest or strongest. But they are learning that surviving is its own kind of strength. Grandfather would say you are like water, Sujin replied with a smile. Water is soft, but it can wear down the hardest stone. As Tejo prepared for sleep, he thought about the weeks ahead. The physical tests had shown his limitations. The mental test had revealed his strengths. But the real challenges were still coming. The aliens now knew that humans were tougher than they looked. Soon, they would discover just how dangerous a human could be when everything seemed lost. The storm was still building, and Tejo was ready for it. The 5th week brought the biggest challenge yet, the Crucible Protocol. Commander Hixtos stood before the remaining 43 cadets. 10 had already quit or been removed from the program. This is your final test, the commander announced. For the next month you will defend Colony World Kepler-7 from a massive enemy invasion. This is not a simple simulation. The scenario will adapt and become harder as you succeed. Many military academies use this test. Most classes fail completely. The cadets were divided into teams and given different roles. Veltar was chosen as the overall commander because he had the highest combat scores. Tejo was assigned as a squad leader, which surprised many aliens who still saw him as just a human. The simulation began with enemy ships appearing in space around the colony world. Veltar immediately ordered all forces to attack the ships directly. We are Kralix. We fight with honor and strength, he roared, leading the charge. The first day went well. Veltar's aggressive tactics worked against the initial enemy forces. His teams destroyed several enemy ships and pushed back the invasion. The aliens cheered and celebrated their victory. But on the second day, everything changed. The enemy adapted to their tactics. More ships arrived using different strategies. The direct attack methods that worked before now failed badly. Why are they not fighting the same way? Veltar asked, frustrated. We defeated them yesterday. The scenario adapts, explained instructor Lee Hyo-jin, a human tactical expert watching the exercise. Real enemies learn from their defeats. This simulation does the same thing. By the 3rd day, Veltar's forces were losing badly. The enemy had learned to counter every aggressive tactic. Worse, Veltar kept using the same strategies even when they stopped working. During a break in the simulation, several cadets approached Tejo privately. The Kralix way is not working, whispered Nixara. We need a different approach. You have been watching everything, added Yisha. What do you think we should do? Tejo had indeed been watching. While others focused on fighting, he studied the enemy patterns. He noticed things others missed. The enemy learns from direct attacks, he explained quietly. But they expect us to keep fighting the same way. What if we do not give them what they expect? What do you mean? Asked Broxon. What if we make them think they are winning when they are actually losing? The cadets looked confused, but they were desperate. Veltar's leadership was failing, and they needed something new. That night, something unprecedented happened. The alien cadets went to Commander Hixtos together and made an unusual request. We want Tejo to be our commander, Veltar said, his pride clearly hurt but his voice determined. I am a great warrior, but this requires a different kind of thinking. The commander was shocked. A human commanding alien warriors? This has never been done before. Maybe that is why it might work, said Veltar quietly. The next morning, Tejo found himself in command of the entire defense force. He felt the weight of responsibility, but he also felt ready. Listen carefully, he told his new team. We are going to do something the enemy will not expect. We are going to retreat. The aliens looked shocked. Retreat was shameful in most of their cultures. Not a real retreat, Tejo explained. A planned retreat. We will make the enemy think they are winning while we lead them exactly where we want them. Tejo's strategy was complex but clever. Instead of fighting the enemy directly, he would use their confidence against them. Each retreat would be carefully planned to draw enemy forces into worse positions. The plan began with what looked like a devastating defeat. Tejo ordered his forces to abandon several defensive positions and fall back toward the colony's main city. The enemy, thinking they were winning easily, chased after them eagerly. But Tejo had prepared surprises. As the enemy moved into the abandoned positions, hidden explosives destroyed their supply lines. The positions they thought they had captured became traps. The human is using psychological warfare on a massive scale, observed Dr. Kim Subin as she watched the simulation. He is making the enemy's victories into defeats. On the second day under Tejo's command, the enemy found themselves spread out across the planet, holding positions that were actually useless. Their forces were divided and far from their supplies. Now we strike, Tejo ordered. But instead of attacking where the enemy expected, his forces hit where they were weakest. Veltar led lightning raids that destroyed enemy communication centers. Nixara used her speed to sabotage enemy equipment. Broxon held defensive positions that forced enemies to attack uphill against prepared defenses. Each alien cadet discovered that their natural abilities became much more effective when used as part of a larger plan instead of just direct attacks. Feel like a real warrior for the first time, Veltar told Tejo after a successful raid. Before, I was just fighting. Now I am winning. The enemy began to make mistakes. Frustrated by their inability to understand human tactics, they made emotional decisions. They attacked positions that were too well defended. They wasted resources, chasing forces that disappeared like smoke. By the end of the first week under Tejo's leadership, the tide had completely turned. The enemy was confused, divided, and making bad choices. How does the human predict their moves so well? Asked one instructor. He does not predict their moves, answered Dr. Kim Subin. He controls their moves. He makes them want to do what he wants them to do. In the second week, Tejo began teaching his team advanced human tactics. Misdirection, making the enemy focus on the wrong things while the real attack came from somewhere else. Resource warfare, attacking enemy supplies and communication instead of just their soldiers. Psychological pressure, making the enemy afraid and angry so they would make mistakes. Adaptive planning, changing strategies based on what the enemy did, not just sticking to one plan. Each alien cadet became better at their own species' strengths because they learned to use them in new ways. Yisha discovered that her mind-reading abilities worked better when she focused on understanding enemy emotions rather than just their thoughts. Fear and anger make their thoughts easier to read, she reported. Nixara learned that her speed was most valuable for gathering information and creating confusion, not just attacking. I can be in 5 places in 1 minute, she said excitedly. The enemy never knows where I really am. Broxon found that his incredible strength was perfect for psychological warfare. When enemies see what I can do to their walls, they lose hope, he explained with satisfaction. Even Veltar changed his approach. Instead of just charging into battle, he learned to use his fearsome appearance to make enemies surrender without fighting. Why waste energy killing them when they give up just by seeing me? He said. By the third week, something amazing was happening. The enemy simulation kept making itself harder, but Tejo's team kept winning anyway. They were not just defeating the invasion, they were making it look easy. Other instructors from across the galaxy came to watch the unprecedented success. Never before had a cadet team performed so well in the Crucible Protocol. The human has turned a group of individual warriors into a unified force, observed Admiral Vexarion, the Coalition's supreme commander, who had come to see the famous human cadet for himself. In the final week, the simulation threw everything it had at them: massive fleets, impossible odds, scenarios based on historical defeats where entire armies had been destroyed. But Taeho's team faced each challenge with confidence. They had learned that victory was not about being stronger than the enemy. Victory was about being smarter, more adaptable, and more unified. When the Crucible protocol finally ended after 30 days, the results were extraordinary. Taeho's team had achieved the highest success rating in the program's 200-year history. Commander Hyksos stood before the exhausted but triumphant cadets. "You have accomplished something that military historians will study for generations," he announced. "You have proven that true strength comes not from individual power, but from unity, strategy, and the refusal to accept defeat." That night, the alien cadets surrounded Taeho at dinner. They no longer saw him as just a human. They saw him as their leader and their teacher. "You showed us that our species' gifts are not limitations," Veltar said with deep respect. "You showed us how to be more than we thought possible." Taeho looked around at his team, his friends, and smiled. "You were already strong. I just helped you understand different ways to use that strength." The quiet human who had arrived as an afterthought was now preparing to graduate as the most successful cadet in Academy history. But more importantly, he had changed how an entire galaxy thought about warfare, leadership, and what it truly meant to be strong. Commander Hyksos gathered all the remaining cadets in the main briefing room. His red eyes were more serious than ever before. "Today you face the ultimate challenge," he announced. "The Battle of Void's Edge simulation. This is based on a real battle where 3 coalition fleets were completely destroyed. In 200 years of Academy training, no cadet team has ever lasted more than 4 hours in this scenario." The room fell silent. Every military student in the galaxy knew about the Battle of Void's Edge. It was the Coalition's worst defeat in history. 50,000 ships destroyed, 3 million soldiers lost. The enemy had won so completely that Coalition forces had never attempted such a large attack again. "Why would you give us an impossible test?" asked Veltar. "Because real war is often impossible," Commander Hyksos replied. "Leaders must find ways to win even when victory seems hopeless." The cadets entered the command center for their final simulation. Banks of screens showed a massive star system with enemy forces everywhere. Red dots filled the displays, thousands of enemy ships waiting for them. Taeho studied the tactical display quietly while other cadets whispered nervously. The numbers were terrifying. Their small fleet faced an enemy force 10 times larger, with better weapons and stronger defenses. "This is suicide," muttered Bruxon. "Even with our new tactics, we cannot fight this many enemies." "You are right," Taeho said calmly. "We cannot fight them, so we will not fight them." The alien cadets looked confused. If they did not fight, how could they win? "What do you mean?" asked Nixara. Taeho pointed to the display. "Look carefully at their formation. What do you see?" The cadets studied the enemy positions. Yisha spoke first. "They are very confident. Their ships are spread out like they expect easy victory." "Exactly," Taeho nodded. "They think they have already won. Confident enemies make different mistakes than desperate ones." Taeho's plan was unlike anything in military history. Instead of trying to win the historical battle, he would create an entirely different battle. A battle where the enemy's strengths became weaknesses. "We are going to surrender," he announced. The aliens stared at him in shock. Surrender was the most shameful thing imaginable for warrior species. "Not really," Taeho explained quickly. "We will pretend to surrender. We will make them think we are defeated and helpless. Then when they come close to capture us, we will show them what humans call a surprise." The simulation began. Enemy forces advanced toward Taeho's small fleet, expecting another easy victory like the original Battle of Void's Edge. Taeho ordered his ships to power down their weapons and shields. To the enemy, it looked like complete surrender. Enemy commanders laughed as they moved in to capture the coalition fleet. "The humans have given up without fighting," they said to each other. "This will be easier than the original battle." But Taeho had spent weeks studying every detail of the original battle. He knew exactly why the coalition had lost. The enemy expected them to fight bravely and lose heroically, just like before. They did not expect humans to rewrite the rules of war. As enemy ships moved close to capture the surrendering coalition fleet, Taeho's real plan began. Hidden inside his ships were special weapons that looked like normal cargo. The enemy scanners did not detect them because they were not looking for weapons inside ships that had surrendered. Now, Taeho whispered. The cargo exploded. But these were not normal explosives. They were electromagnetic pulse weapons that shut down enemy ship systems without destroying the ships. Suddenly, hundreds of enemy vessels were floating helpless in space. Phase 2, Taeho ordered. Veltar led boarding parties onto the disabled enemy ships. Instead of fighting the crews, they captured the enemy commanders and used the enemy communication systems to send false orders to other enemy fleets. All ships retreat to defensive positions, Veltar said into the enemy communication system, perfectly imitating an enemy commander's voice. The coalition has secret weapons we did not expect. The false orders worked perfectly. Enemy fleets began retreating from strong positions, thinking their own commanders had ordered it. Meanwhile, Nixara used her incredible speed to plant more hidden devices on enemy supply ships. When these exploded, they destroyed the fuel and ammunition that the entire enemy fleet needed to function. Broxon's job was different but equally important. His massive strength allowed him to move huge asteroids into new positions. These became hidden bases where coalition ships could hide and repair. Yisha used her mind-reading abilities to monitor enemy thoughts and emotions. They are confused and scared, she reported. They cannot understand what is happening. Fear is making them make bad decisions. Hour after hour, Taeho's plan unfolded like a complex puzzle. Each piece fit perfectly with the others. The enemy fleet, which had seemed unstoppable, began to fall apart from the inside. Enemy commanders argued with each other, not knowing which orders were real and which were fake. Their ships ran out of fuel because their supply lines had been destroyed. Their formations scattered because they thought coalition forces were everywhere. This is impossible, said one enemy commander in a communication that Yisha intercepted. How can we be losing to a force 1/10 our size? By the 12th hour, something unprecedented was happening. The enemy fleet was retreating in panic. Ships that had been confident of victory were now desperate to escape. By the 20th hour, Taeho's forces had captured 3 enemy commanders and destroyed half their fleet without losing a single coalition ship. By the 26th hour, longer than any cadet team had ever survived, the enemy fleet was completely defeated. The simulation ended with total coalition victory. The command center fell completely silent. Instructors stared at their screens in disbelief. The impossible had just happened. A battle that had been a terrible defeat in real history had become a perfect victory. Commander Hixtos stood slowly, his massive form trembling slightly. In 50 years of military service, I have never seen anything like this. You did not just survive the Battle of Void's Edge. You won it completely. Admiral Vexrion, who had been watching from the observation deck, entered the command center. The Supreme Coalition military commander looked at Taeho with something close to awe. Young human, the admiral said, you have just changed military, science forever. Every tactical school in the galaxy will study what you did here today. Word of the victory spread across Nexus Prime within hours. Then it spread to other worlds. Within days, the entire galaxy knew about the human cadet who had achieved the impossible. The graduation ceremony was unlike any in Academy history. Representatives from dozens of worlds came to see the legendary human warrior. But Taeho remained quiet and humble, standing with his alien teammates who had become his closest friends. Today we honor not just individual achievement, but the power of unity, Commander Hixtos announced to the gathered crowd. These cadets have shown us that true strength comes from understanding, adaptation, and working together. Veltar stepped forward to speak for all the alien cadets. We came here believing that strength meant being better than others. The human Taeho taught us that real strength means making others better than they thought they could be. After the ceremony, offers poured in from across the galaxy. Every military force wanted Taeho as a tactical advisor. Every academy wanted him as an instructor. Every government wanted him as a strategic consultant. But Taeho made a choice that surprised everyone. He requested assignment back to Earth. "Why?" asked Admiral Vexrion. "You could have any position in the galaxy, because my world needs to know what we accomplished here," Taeho replied. "Other humans need to understand that we are not weak. We are just strong in ways the galaxy is still learning to recognize." 6 months later, Taeho stood in front of a new class at the Terran Military Academy on Earth. Among the eager young faces was his younger brother Kang Min-ho and other humans who had heard the stories of what happened at Nexus Prime. "The galaxy thought we were weak because we were not the strongest, fastest, or most durable species," Taeho told his students. "But we showed them that strength has many forms. We showed them what it means to adapt, to endure, and to find victory, where others see only defeat." One student raised her hand. "What happens next, sir?" Taeho smiled as he looked at the message on his desk. It was from Coalition Command, marked Urgent Galactic Crisis. A new enemy had appeared at the edge of known space. This enemy had defeated every force sent against them using conventional tactics. Their technology was superior. Their numbers were overwhelming. Traditional military thinking had failed completely. The Coalition's request was simple. They needed human strategic leadership for the coming war. "What happens next," Taeho said to his students, "is that we show the galaxy what humans can really do when everything seems hopeless." He looked out the window at the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere. Somewhere out there, an enemy waited who thought they understood warfare. They were about to learn that they had never faced anything like human determination. The quiet Marine who had arrived at Nexus Prime as an underestimated afterthought was now preparing to lead the galaxy's defense against impossible odds.